what is your what is your impression of the committee of inquiry so far? Is it doing a good job despite these?
I suppose we will only know that really at the end. But there are concerns that I've got at the moment. The organisation doesn't seem to be as good as it might be. I mean, it seems incredible to me that having made my statement well over a year ago, I think, in actual fact, a year and 3 months ago, I made my statement, that even on the second day of my evidence, on the last afternoon, I was still getting documents handed to me that really should have been given to me beforehand, and we kept having to have breaks because my lawyer insisted that we have a look at some of these documents which were being handed, and some of them, I needed time to look at some of them because I was able to draw. For instance, one of the documents that I took issue with was a document that was handed to me which the advocate said showed without a shadow of a doubt that Maguire, I forget Maguire's first name, but Mr. Maguire, his so-called terminal illness, the advocate handed me minutes of a meeting which he said showed quite clearly that the Attorney General's office and other law representatives had not taken into account Mr. Maguire's terminal illness when dropping the charges against Maguire in respect of the original investigation. But when I had time to look at the memo with my lawyer, we actually discovered that in the actual memo, what it said was matters of evidence which were contained in Mr. Binnington's original memo were then discussed. Now, one of the items that was contained in Mr. Binnington's original memo was Mr. Maguire's terminal illness. So although they were trying to put it across that Mr. Maguire's illness hadn't been discussed and it wasn't mentioned per se in the minutes, the fact that the contents of the document in which it appeared were discussed was quite clear. And I challenged this and put it to them, but it was ignored and just moved on.
And so, because we got a few misgivings of former Deputy Trevor Pittman. I know he's got a few. I don't know if you know that his evidence has been going up on the care inquiry, then going down and going up and going down. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yes, I am aware of that because a journalist who was talking to me the other day asked me what that was all about. Now, Trevor Pittman relates to one of the two other huge concerns that I've had so far about the way the inquiry has been running. Trevor Pittman made one of the most significant reports involved in this whole saga, which was in and around the BDO, which of course was the scrutiny report. Now, that was a damning indictment of the Jersey establishment and their attempts to cover up a lot of what had gone before. And I still cannot believe, and I find it very difficult to believe, that Trevor Pittman was in there for a very short time and the scrutiny report was not even mentioned.
He was asked about his time as a youth officer.
Yes, and I mean, bearing in mind that political interference and the performance of the Law Officers Department in bringing charges is a big part of this inquiry. When you think that the dynamite that was Trevor Pittman's BDO report from scrutiny, and also the severe personal implications that have followed from that report, to not even have it mentioned seems to me most bizarre. And that's one of the two other huge concerns I have of the way that the inquiry has progressed. The other massive concern is one that really does worry me, and that is the favourable treatment shown to suspected paedophiles who were in high positions within the states of Jersey, and the fact that they were allowed to give evidence. Some of them were allowed to give evidence on more than one occasion. And some people have found it difficult to grasp the significance of this. For somebody who was in a highly placed position within the state's apparatus and who had a large number of complaints made against him of child abuse, well documented, well evidenced, and was then allowed to give evidence, firstly under a pseudonym where nobody knew who he was, and these allegations were put to him under this pseudonym, and he was able not only to deny the allegations, but one of these people even went so far as to describe some of the victims as disturbed and also claiming that they were abused purely for compensation, and also to launch quite an astonishing attack on my own integrity and on the integrity of the police investigation. And they were able to do that with no holds barred. They named myself, they attacked the victims, and were able to deny the allegations. And then a short time later, they were able to give evidence under their own name as a respectable member of the state's apparatus. And no allegations were put to them whatsoever. They were asked about their jobs, and untainted, they were then able to launch the same attacks on myself and the victims. So thus making it look as if there were a number of different people who were attacking the police investigation and attacking the victims, when in reality it was one very tainted individual, or a number of very tainted individuals on different occasions, who were actually making the same attacks on the investigation and on the victims. And I think that is a huge blot on the fairness and the integrity of the inquiry.
Yeah, we did report on that. I have reported on that at an earlier stage, and it does look like, if you like, it just looks as though the suspected paedophiles are given more protection than their victims.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the allegations were made against them. They weren't allowed to be named because apparently they haven't been charged. But none of the victims have been charged in respect of these allegations. There's no suggestion that these victims are making it up. Most of them have been through the redress system, so there's an acceptance that they're telling the truth. And yet, it's been open house on them to criticise them and for these people to deny. And if these people are denying the allegations, let's not mince words. They're denying the allegations. They're saying the victims are telling lies.
And they're doing it, these alleged perpetrators are doing it anonymously. Now, you received two spontaneous rounds of applause from the public, the packed public gallery, and after what seemed like a cross-examination. I read somewhere on social media the other day that you were cross-examined. What's going on there?
Well, this is another bizarre aspect of it. Every witness has been told, and right from the outset, I remember sitting down making my statement, the draft of my statement. It must be nearly 2 years ago now. And I remember being told right at the outset that no witnesses would be cross-examined. There would be no cross-examination permitted. And when I looked at the committee website, all along where they list the witnesses and the day's proceedings on their closed website, it says underneath every witness, questioned by inquiry counsel, questioned by inquiry counsel. But I was checking my transcript the other night, and underneath my name on the second day, it had cross-examination by inquiry counsel continued.
Right, so we did think you were cross-examined and came through it with flying colours. But so it's official now. It's official. You were cross-examined. It's
official. I was the only witness in the whole inquiry to have been cross-examined. And I have to say that, and I'm not complaining about this, but I have to say that as I was going through and sparring, which was on occasions with Mr. Sad, that it did occur to me that I had been through quite a few fraught trials in in various parts of the United Kingdom for various types of trials, which I always thought which got a bit fraught at times. But this was probably the equal of any of them in respect of a cross-examination.
Well, again, we talk about the second round of applause you got was at the end of your testimony, your evidence to the inquiry, where you had a few words for the victims and survivors. Could you repeat them for the viewers?
Well, what I simply said was that I would like to pay a heartfelt tribute to the victims, survivors of the abuse, who had suffered so much, and that I was very grateful to them and very moved by the trust that they placed in myself and my team, when you consider the way that they've been treated by authority figures in the past, and I think it was brought sharply into focus by the way that I felt that the victims had been treated throughout this whole process, and about what I see as preferential treatment being given to some of the abusers, and it had been brought even more sharply into focus, of course, by the tragic events involving one of the victims a couple of weeks ago, which I know affected a number of other survivors very, very badly. So I just felt that I just needed to make this point that because let me not mince words. The focus of the inquiry, and I think I've been quoted as saying this somewhere else, the focus of the inquiry at times has seemed to move away from the suffering of the victims, away from the abusers, to erroneous attacks based on false information on the investigation. And there good examples of this are still going on, and that some of the media again wheeling out old stories like the coconut myth and all the rest of it, when there are serious stories to be told of abuse and of cover-up. And I just felt that I needed to make the point that the focus again should be on the victims who had suffered so much.
And you made that point very well. Like I say, is you got so much appreciation from the public gallery on that. I want to thank you again, Mr. Harper, for for being there, for always being ready for an interview and answer any questions put to you. It's going to rumble on.
Yes, I've no doubt that it will, and and I just hope, as I said at the inquiry the other day, at the end of the day, I hope that the victims, survivors, get what they need from this inquiry. And as for me, for being there, it's actually been my privilege to do the little bit that I can do. And as I say, I just hope that the victim survivors get what they need from this inquiry.